We're joined now by Mr. Wale Babalakin, who is the Senior Advocate of Nigeria, Chairman of Bi-Courtney Limited. He was at the summit, delivered a paper yesterday, that's what I mean. We'll focus on that as well today. Thank you for coming on this morning.
Good morning and thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Well, we started off this conversation with the Vice Chair of the NESG about public-private partnerships and what the government needs to do, how they need to collaborate a lot better. But your paper yesterday talked about unlocking some of the, what you call the binding constraints in public-private partnerships in Nigeria. And I'm just wondering, is this a teething problem that we need to deal with as they spring up, or you think we may be in danger of deliberately institutionalizing some of these hitches?
I reckon that the problems are both conceptual and superficial. The superficial ones can be dealt with very easily, but the conceptual ones require considerable attitudinal change, which is germane to PPPs. Let me start by saying that in Nigeria, PPP is not just an option. It's a logical imperative. What do I mean by that? When you compare our gross earnings to our gross expenses, you discover that there is hardly any money available for capital projects unless the money is borrowed. As early as 3 years ago, I think gross expense and gross revenue were equal. And this was even when oil prices were considerably high. So now oil prices are low, expenses have not gone down remarkably, you have to provide infrastructure, and there is no money to do it unless you borrow.
So that's where the private sector comes in, and you know, I think your topic yesterday was unlocking the binding constraints to a public-private partnership. You have been involved in that, and I'm sure that you gave your, we missed your presentation unfortunately, but I'm sure you gave it from the perspective of someone who's been there and seen what the problems are. Part of the problems, I wasn't at your presentation, but from my experience as a journalist, part of the problem sometimes is a question of perception, how the public perceives public-private partnerships, so that sometimes they believe that government is about to, or government officials are about to go through this with their fronts, as it were, using their own companies and then also making money off the people, which they believe, whose service they believe ought to have been free in the very first instance. This, you will agree, is one major constraint that has been in place. How do you think, or is it a misconception, how do you think government should handle this?
You know, the most fundamental problem of governance is actually information dissemination. How do you let the world know the truth? Today, sadly, you can say anything, whether it's false or true, and it will go around, because there are no institutional ways of correcting this. We don't have a system that is able to determine what is true and what is false. And there is hardly any punishment for spreading rumor. Historically, most of the PPPs have failed. They have failed largely because, as you rightly pointed out, most people unaware assume that it's a product of cronyism, and that, oh, somebody has been favored, he has been given a concession, and that is it. Personal experience, I actually remember someone telling me once at a function that MMA2 was given to Dr. Babalakin by President Obasanjo. Nothing could be further from the truth. There was a bid. Our company did not win. Another company won. It was awarded to that company. A year later, for various reasons, largely to the company not meeting whatever the terms were, we were invited in. And we came in as a reserve bidder, and our company succeeded in completing the project. But if you do a study today, a poll, there are still those who believe that President Abacha woke up one day and gave MMA to Bi-Courtney. But it's false.
You know, talking about the constraints, because I went through your paper presentation yesterday a whole lot, because it was more academic and practical, because you started by telling us the different kinds of PPPs and the problems and the challenges, because it is very key here. That is why we need to understand some of these problems. As Markwe highlighted, it would seem as if when we have a different government, because that is the fear of most investors who would want to come into the PPP philosophy. When you have a different government, a different man comes in on the saddle, some of these things are truncated. Tell us more as a player and someone who's very much enmeshed in the PPP idea.
Okay. I was going to reserve that to the last, but I will come now. Whether we agree or not, I believe in empirical data. One of the biggest problems you have today is the failure of the intelligentsia in Nigeria. What is the intelligentsia? One of the dictionaries describes it as a group of people of high learning who are determined to improve the society. It is this collective group that forms a body that ensures that we know the truth. In Nigeria, the intelligentsia collapsed. I delivered a paper in 2001 at the Government College Ibadan Old Boys Association. I'm an old boy. And I said that the Nigerian intelligentsia was an endangered species. I've moved further now. I actually believe that the Nigerian intelligentsia is on life support. Otherwise, how do you describe a country that has no institution of reference in anything? There is no...
By that you mean a think tank or?
Institution of reference. You see, in other countries, they say, oh, this is a standard secondary school. This is a standard university. And everybody then aspires to be like those institutions. That is what we expect. In Nigeria, what you find out is rather than aspiring to be like those institutions, you bring all the institutions down to everybody's level. So at the end of the day, today, you have no Nigerian university that is rated in the world. You have no Nigerian secondary school that is rated in the world. There is no place for preparing those who will ultimately govern. So what you just have is anybody who finds himself fortuitously occupying power has the authority just to do anything. And invariably, it affects us greatly.
But do they really think that they can do anything? Because, I mean, it's still the rule of law in this country, not that of force.
Okay, rule of law. Very important point. First, in recent times, I open the newspapers and I see comments being made about law. And the next thing I do, I try to research into the person making the comments. By the time you do the research, you discover that this person has no platform. He has no knowledge of law. He has audience. He is able to spread propaganda and is able to say anything and get away with it. Rule of law. How many Nigerians today actually believe in the rule of law? When it's very convenient for them, they celebrate it. When it's not convenient, oh, oh, the judges have done something wrong. Oh, the judges have done this. Oh, the judges have done that. The judges in Nigeria are being criticized extensively by those who do not even understand the constraints under which they operate.